In this tutorial, I'll show you a few ways you can use Media Encoder to render your After Effects compositions in the background. So Media Encoder installed by default with Premiere Pro or After Effects, and it is the official Adobe render engine that can help you to work while you render, or to render while you work. Now, it's almost like mushrooms. You either love or hate it. Some users will do everything to avoid Media Encoder because it can be unstable and sluggish. Meanwhile, others will swear by it and use it all the time, all day long. Now, I think it can speed up your work, but unfortunately, things can break without any notice and reason. And I want to show you how to work around this if, or let's be honest, when this will happen to you. So there are three main methods to integrate After Effects and Media Encoder. You can add comps to the render queue, define the desired settings inside After Effects, and then send them over to Media Encoder for rendering in the background. You can also completely ignore the render queue setting of After Effects and send those comps straight to Media Encoder and then set up their render settings over there. Or you can use Media Encoder to import After Effects projects, choose the desired compositions upon importing, and set the render settings over there. Also note that when you send a comp from After Effects to Media Encoder, a snapshot will be created and saved next to the project. And this means that you can continue to work on the composition while it's being rendered in Media Encoder, but you won't see those changes until you choose to render it again. So let me show you how this works. I have the project here with 3 comps that I finished working on, and I'm ready to send those compositions to Media Encoder for rendering. Some of those comps can take a while to render, and I want to continue working while this is being processed in the background. So I'll return to the first comp here, the Astro Funk. I'll play it for you just so you'll see what we have here. And this is based on a lab that I gave a few years ago at Adobe Max. There is a recording of it. If you want, you can check my website. Also, the link is in the description. Anyhow, I'm ready to send it over for rendering. So what I'll do is go to the composition menu and I can choose Add to Render Queue. Notice that you can do it also from the File menu, Export, and you can choose Add to Render Queue. And this is going to bring it over here. Now I can click on Output To, and I'll choose this location and save it over here. And now I can open up the render settings. These are the things that I can send from After Effects to Media Encoder if I choose this button, Q in AME, which is Adobe Media Encoder. So I'll click on Best Settings here, and let's change a few of the things just so we can see how this works. So I'll change the resolution to half, and I'm going to use another frame rate for this comp. Let's go with 50. Again, anything you are going to change in this menu, render settings, is going to be honored with Media Encoder. I'll click OK, and now I'm going to click on Q in AME. You're going to see the splash screen of Media Encoder, so this may look different depending on the version that you're using. And a few moments later, you should see here inside the queue your comp that you just sent from After Effects. And as you can see in my machine, it doesn't work. Now, Adobe have few suggestions, and I've included this link in the description. So they are saying that one workaround is to disable the parallel encoding. Another one is to change it from the GPU to the software-only Mercury playback engine. And there is also a suggestion to just remove the Adobe Media Encoder preferences, as well as to just reinstall the entire thing. And believe me that I did everything prior to recording this tutorial, and it didn't work. So let me show you what you can do. As I told you, every time you are clicking this button inside After Effects, this little guy, the Q in AME, this is going to create a snapshot of the project. So if I'll bring back Media Encoder and click on the little plus over here, I can navigate to where my project is and this is the folder which was created automatically with a snapshot of whatever I had in the render queue. So this file is basically the file that Media Encoder expects to render. Now, if it doesn't work for you, you can locate the file, you can choose Open, you will see the Import After Effects Composition dialog box, and it's going to show you only one composition, the one that you just sent to Media Encoder, so you can select it from here, and then you can click OK, and it's going to bring it over. Now, just to show you that everything that we set up inside After Effects is respected, I'll click on Match Source High Bitrate, which is the preset, and this will use dynamic link to connect to this project, and we can see under the basic video settings that indeed it respects the half res. It is 960 by 540, and if I'll scroll down, you can see that the frame rate that I've modified is also being taken under account. So from this dialog, I can continue and change the settings if I want to, and I can select a different format as well as different presets. This is basically ready to render. Another good thing that I can do here inside Media Encoder is to duplicate the task, and now I can select from different presets which are built into Media Encoder. So if I want a 4K version of this, I can do it from this dialog. Now, I'm not going to start rendering. I'll return back to After Effects, and I want to show you another way to work. So for this, I'm going to select this composition, and in this case, I can either go to File, Export, and choose Add to Adobe Media Encoder Queue, or again, there is a command over here under Composition, Add to Adobe Media Encoder Queue. I'm showing it to you over here because this one also has a keyboard shortcut. So I'll select it, and I should be flipped to Media Encoder. Nothing is happening, so I'll do it manually. As you can see, Media Encoder didn't really obey the command. So usually you should see the new task popping in Media Encoder ready for you to render. Again, this is not happening on my machine, so I'll click on this little plus to add a source. I'll go back to the same folder, and over here I have another snapshot. I can open this snapshot, I'll select this timeline, and I can now render it. So maybe for this one, I'll just choose the high quality 1080p HD. Now, another thing worth mentioning is the output file address. It's going to use the same folder and place all the renders inside of it. Let's go back to After Effects. I'll check this one, the Wilderness comp, and I can do the same thing. So I'll go to Composition, Add to Adobe Media Encoder. Again, nothing is happening on my machine, so I'll switch manually to Media Encoder, click the plus icon, and then I'll select it from the menu. A bit tedious, but hopefully on your end, everything is going to happen automatically. But now comes the big advantage, meaning that I can start the render queue by clicking on this little green triangle, and this is going to render whatever it can simultaneously, as you can see in this case, and then it's going to move to the second task and the third task, and so on and so forth. So just to rub it in, make sure you understand how we are utilizing the computer power. I'm actually going to take this comp and add this to the regular After Effects render queue. I'll ignore the first task by ticking off the checkmark under render, and I'm just going to render from After Effects this composition while Media Encoder is already rendering in the background. As you can see, everything finished very quickly. Now, before I let you go, I want to return back to Media Encoder and show you that even if After Effects is not running or it is busy doing something else, you can still click on this plus to add a source. I'm going to switch to another folder, and from here I'll take this project. So I'm importing it directly from Media Encoder, and over here I can select the comps that I would like to render. Now notice that you can't select multiple comps, so you need to add them separately. I'll click on OK over here, and of course if I want to edit the settings for this composition, I can click on the preset name, it's going to connect to the After Effects project, and it's going to give me a preview showing it over here. And this is a great point to tell you that if you are using third-party effects and this copy of Media Encoder is on another machine, you must install all the plugins that you are using on this machine so it will be able to process the file correctly. So in my case, I'm actually using Element 3D, and I think that everything looks okay here, so I can click OK. I can point it to wherever I want it to save the file, in this case the desktop, and I can give it a green light to start the job. The main benefit here is that you can return to After Effects and continue to work on another project. And so there you go, these are the best workflows when you want to integrate between After Effects and Media Encoder.